The mansion stood silent, cloaked in shadows that crept through the grand hallways. Alexander Cole moved like a ghost, his footsteps echoing softly against the marble floors. 5 years had passed since Emma vanished, and yet the grief remained, etched into the lines of his face, deepening every day. He barely recognized the man in the mirror anymore, a hollow shell of the vibrant entrepreneur he once was. The estate, once buzzing with life, felt like a mausoleum now, every corner a stark reminder of what he had lost. Hiring help was the last thing he wanted, but the loneliness had become unbearable, the stillness suffocating. And so, when Maria arrived, quiet, efficient, unassuming, he didn't think much of it, until he saw it. The necklace. It was a fleeting glimpse at first, a glint of silver as Maria bent over to dust the fireplace mantel. But something about it tugged at his mind. A familiar shape, a delicate pattern. His heart stuttered. He squinted, trying to make out the details, his chest tightening as recognition dawned. No, it can't be. Every nerve in his body screamed for him to look away, to ignore the impossibility staring back at him, but he couldn't. Slowly, cautiously, he approached, his gaze locked on the pendant around Maria's neck. It was unmistakable, the emerald-studded locket, shaped like a teardrop, framed by intertwining vines of silver, a one-of-a-kind piece designed by him for Emma. "Where did you get that?" he asked, his voice a strangled whisper. Maria straightened, her expression guarded. "Sir?" "The necklace," he repeated, a cold edge creeping into his tone. "Where did you get it?" She touched the locket absently, her eyes flickering with something. Fear? Regret? It's a family heirloom. It was given to me by someone very dear." "Who?" he demanded, the word almost a growl. His hands clenched, every muscle coiled tight. This was Emma's necklace. He would stake his life on it. Maria hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. "A woman I met years ago. She saved my life." Alexander's mind spun. A woman? Could it be? He swallowed hard, his pulse pounding in his ears. "Tell me everything." The housekeeper remained silent for a long moment, and when she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "I can't," she whispered. "I made a promise, and breaking it would destroy everything." Destroy what? His mind screamed for answers, but the look in her eyes stopped him cold, a look of raw pain and unspoken truths. Whoever this woman was, whatever promise she had made, it was tied to Emma. He could feel it. But what did it mean? Who was Maria really? And more importantly, what had happened to his wife? As Maria turned away, her shoulders hunched as if under an invisible weight, Alexander knew one thing for certain. He wasn't letting her out of his sight until he got to the bottom of this mystery. Because for the first time in 5 years, he had hope. Hope that Emma might still be alive. The mansion's corridors felt darker than usual that evening, as if the walls themselves were conspiring to hide the secrets simmering within. Alexander paced restlessly in his study, his eyes flitting back and forth between the grandfather clock and the surveillance screen on his desk. He had installed cameras months ago, not out of distrust, but as a desperate attempt to keep the last remnants of Emma's presence in view. Tonight, however, they had a new purpose: keeping an eye on Maria. The necklace. Emma's necklace. Alexander replayed the earlier encounter in his mind 100 times. Each time, the same questions gnawed at him. Why did Maria have it? Who was the woman she spoke of? Could it really be Emma? His stomach clenched painfully at the thought. Finally, he made a decision. He wasn't going to wait. The pain of uncertainty was worse than any truth he could uncover. He took a deep breath and strode purposefully down the hallway, stopping just outside the small servant quarters at the back of the estate. The light from under the door told him Maria was still awake. He knocked sharply. There was a brief, startled silence before the door opened a crack, and Maria's wary face appeared. She glanced at him, then down at her necklace as if she already knew what he had come for. "Sir?" Her voice was tight, her grip on the doorknob white-knuckled. "I need answers, Maria," Alexander said, his voice low and strained, "and I need them now." She stepped back, opening the door wider to let him in. The room was modest, furnished only with a small bed, a wardrobe, and a wooden desk. Yet, despite its simplicity, everything was meticulously arranged. Maria's nature, no doubt. The necklace glinted faintly in the dim light, mocking him with its silent, glittering presence. "Sit," he commanded, his tone sharper than he intended. To his surprise, she obeyed without argument, folding herself onto the edge of the bed, her gaze fixed firmly on the floor. "Tell me about the woman who gave you that necklace," he demanded, crossing his arms to keep his hands from shaking. "Everything. No more evasions." Maria's shoulders trembled slightly, but when she looked up at him, her expression was calm. "Sir, I told you before. I made a promise, but I see now that you deserve to know at least part of the truth." Alexander's heart hammered in his chest as he leaned forward. What truth? Maria took a deep breath, clutching the locket as if drawing strength from it. 5 years ago, I was in a very dark place. I had nowhere to go, and I was running from people who wanted to hurt me. That's when I met her, a woman with a gentle smile and eyes full of sorrow. She found me huddled in an alley, starving and terrified. She didn't ask me who I was or what I had done, she just helped me. Alexander felt a strange mixture of hope and dread. "What was her name?" he whispered. "I don't know," Maria replied softly, shaking her head. "She never told me. She just said I could call her Elle, but I knew she was hiding, just like I was." "Elle?" Alexander echoed. The name was meaningless, yet something about it rang faintly familiar. He fought to stay focused. "Go on." "She took me in, gave me food and shelter, and, most importantly, she protected me." Maria's voice grew distant, as if she were reliving the memories. "There were people after me, bad people, and she faced them without fear. She saved my life more than once, and when it was time for me to leave, she gave me this necklace. She said it would keep me safe." Alexander stared at her, disbelief and fury warring within him. "Do you realize what you're saying?" he asked hoarsely. "That necklace, it's unique. I designed it myself for my wife Emma. It shouldn't exist anywhere else. How did she get it?" Maria shook her head again, tears pooling in her eyes. "I don't know, sir. All I know is that she gave it to me and told me never to take it off." "Did you ever ask her where it came from?" Alexander pressed, his voice rising. "Who she was, why she was hiding." "I did," Maria burst out, anguish twisting her features. "But she always evaded my questions. She told me it was better if I didn't know. She said she was protecting me by keeping me in the dark." Protecting her? Alexander's mind reeled. Could it really be Emma? Was his wife alive, hiding in the shadows, helping strangers while he was left to mourn her death? "Where did you last see her?" he demanded. Maria hesitated, then murmured, 3 years ago, in a small village on the outskirts of Lyon, France. I lost contact after that." Alexander clenched his jaw, frustration surging through him. Wasn't enough. He needed more. Elle. Was it Emma using a different name? Or was this some cruel trick played by a stranger? The questions churned like a storm inside him. "Why didn't you say something sooner?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Why didn't you tell me when you first started working here?" "Because I was afraid," Maria cried, standing up suddenly. "I didn't know who you were or why you might be looking for her, and if it was the woman I met, she warned me. She warned me never to reveal anything to anyone, no matter what." Alexander took a step back, staring at her. Fear. That's what he saw in her eyes. Genuine fear. But fear of what? Him, or something else? "Warned you about what?" he whispered, his throat tight. Maria's gaze flickered to the door, as if expecting someone, or something, to burst in at any moment. She said that if I told the wrong person, it would put her life in danger, and yours too. The room fell deathly silent. Alexander felt the ground shift beneath him, the weight of her words crushing his chest. Was it really possible? Could Emma be out there, living under a false identity, running from enemies he didn't even know she had? "What do I do, Maria?" he asked softly, his voice raw. "How do I find her?" Maria bit her lip, looking torn. Then, slowly, she reached into the pocket of her apron and pulled out a small, folded slip of paper. "She made me promise to give this to you if you ever found me and asked the right questions." Alexander's hands trembled as he took the paper. He unfolded it carefully, holding his breath as he read the single line written in a familiar, elegant script. Lyon, Rue des Amours, midnight. His heart stuttered. Lyon. That's where Maria had last seen her. Was this a clue? A meeting place? Or was it a trap? But none of that mattered. Because if there was even the slightest chance that Emma was alive, he would tear the world apart to find her. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick. "Thank you, Maria." She nodded silently, her eyes haunted. "Please, sir, be careful. If it really is her, there are people out there who don't want her to be found." Alexander turned away, the slip of paper clutched tightly in his hand. Lyon. He had a destination. And maybe, just maybe, the hope of finally uncovering the truth that had eluded him for so long. As he left Maria's quarters, a flicker of determination lit his gaze. He would go to Lyon, to Rue des Amours, and he would be there at midnight. And if Emma was waiting for him, nothing in this world would stop him from bringing her home. As Alexander read the final pages of the file, his world seemed to unravel, exposing layers of deception and danger that he could never have imagined. The truth was more horrifying than he'd feared. Emma had been entangled in a web of corruption and power, orchestrated by a shadowy organization known as the Consortium. They were a ruthless syndicate of elite criminals, controlling everything from illegal arms trades to human trafficking. When Emma discovered their operation while volunteering overseas, she became a target, marked for elimination. But instead of fleeing, Emma made the hardest choice. She faked her death to protect Alexander. She went underground, joining a resistance network to sabotage the consortium from within. For years, she lived a double life, erasing all traces of her past. Yet, in the darkest corners of her heart, she always held on to hope. The hope that one day, when it was safe, she could return to the man she loved. The folder included photos, documents, and a single recording, a final message from Emma left just a few months earlier. With shaking fingers, Alexander played the recording. Her voice, soft and strong, filled the room. "Alexander, if you're hearing this, it means you're closer to the truth than ever before. I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry I left, but I couldn't let them hurt you. Everything I did to keep you safe. I need you to know. I never stopped loving you. I never gave up, but if you find this, then they're on to me again. I don't have much time." There was a pause, and he could almost picture her closing her eyes, the way she used to when gathering courage. "I want you to live, Alexander. I want you to be happy, even if it's without me. If there's any way to make it out of this, I'll find you. But if not, promise me you'll let me go." Alexander's chest tightened painfully. "No," he whispered, shaking his head as if she could hear him. "I won't let you go." The recording continued. "There's a chance to take the consortium down once and for all, but it's dangerous. If you decide to follow through, you'll need help. Yvonne can connect you to the right people, but remember, they'll stop at nothing to kill anyone who stands in their way. That includes you, so please, be careful." The message ended with a soft click. Alexander sat in stunned silence, the weight of her words crushing him. She had been out there, alone and fighting for all these years, risking her life to protect him and countless others. And now she was in danger again, because of him. But he couldn't walk away, not now. He turned to Yvonne, his eyes blazing with resolve. "How do I find them?" Yvonne sighed deeply, her gaze somber. "It won't be easy. The consortium has eyes everywhere, but I know someone who can help, a man who's been fighting them for years. If you're serious, I can make the call. But understand this. Once you take this step, there's no turning back." Alexander squared his shoulders, his voice steady. "I'm in. For Emma." Yvonne nodded slowly, then reached for her phone. "Very well, monsieur. But be warned. If you fail, they will destroy everything you hold dear." Alexander's grip tightened on the folder. He thought of Emma, of her bravery, her sacrifice, and the love they shared. He couldn't let the consortium win, not when she had fought so hard to bring them down, not when she was still out there, somewhere, waiting for him. "I won't fail," he murmured, and with that, the next chapter of his life began, not as a grieving husband, but as a man on a mission, a man determined to save the woman he loved and end the nightmare that had torn them apart. If you found Alexander and Emma's story as gripping as I did, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video with your friends. What would you do if you were in Alexander's shoes? Comment below with your thoughts. And if you want to hear more stories of love, loss, and mystery, check out our other videos or hit that notification bell so you never miss a new release. Remember, every like and share helps us bring you more amazing content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next thrilling story. Stay tuned.